Moscow. Let's bring in CNN's Claire Sebastian live in the Russian capital following the story as well. Claire, good to have you with us. I'm sure you just heard Natalie's interview about the FBI director's testimony that's due Monday. All eyes will be on what he has to say or what he doesn't have to say. But in Moscow, is there any anticipation about what's to come?
Well, publicly, George, the Kremlin is saying that they are very busy with their own work and are not paying attention to this hearing. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told us that he doesn't expect to hear anything new, rather colourfully calling this a broken record with futuristic songs, making the point there that these accusations against Russia keep coming despite Russia's repeated denials that there was any meddling by Russia in the U.S. election, and their insistence that any contacts between Russian officials and the then Trump campaign, now Trump administration, were anything other than the normal course of day-to-day diplomacy. But look, I think it's fair to say when you have the FBI director testifying under oath on Capitol Hill about an investigation into Russia, that Russia will certainly be watching closely. You know, this isn't just a potentially awkward moment for the Trump administration. This could be awkward for Russia, depending, of course, on what comes out. Don't forget the first 2 months of the Trump presidency. We've gone from higher hopes here that this could be an improved relationship with the U.S. under Trump to a realization now that Russia is perhaps Trump's biggest Achilles heel. And I think that's why you see these kind of offhand dismissals from the Kremlin that we just heard, and also the fact that there's been a marked reduction here in Russia of the amount of media coverage of the Trump administration. They are trying very hard to distance themselves from this, George.
You know, on this side of the pond, there are certainly a lot of bogus claims. There are conspiracy theories that we here in the media continue to sift and sort through. But the one story that will not go away, these questions about Russia, the questions about whether there were ties between the Trump campaign and administration to Russia. How does this play into the president's initial suggestion that he wants warmer relations with Russia? Are Russian leaders still as optimistic, is the question?
Absolutely not, George. I think there's been several turning points throughout the last 2 months in terms of how Russia views its potential relationship with the U.S. You know, first we saw that at that very first phone call between Presidents Putin and Trump, where there was no mention of sanctions as Russia had initially hoped. Then we saw the rhetoric ramping up in Washington about Russia's actions in Ukraine. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley saying that sanctions would not be lifted until Crimea was returned. That, of course, a closed issue here in Russia. And, of course, the departure, the sacking of Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, was very much an uncomfortable moment here in Moscow. He was seen as a friendly voice within the Trump administration towards Russia, and that certainly cemented the view that the stance of the Trump administration towards Russia was very much hardening. You know, the Kremlin has told us that they never had any major expectations, any what they called rose-colored spectacles when it came to that relationship. But I think certainly in political circles there has been a sense of disappointment and a resignation perhaps that things could be going back to the difficult relationship that they experienced under former President Obama. So that is currently the situation. They are very much kind of holding back, trying to keep a lid on any news surrounding Russian links with the Trump administration or Russian meddling, but still lowered expectations definitely about how this relationship will progress.
Claire Sebastian live for us in Moscow. Claire, thank you for the report.